You're listening to the OK Dad podcast.
Please leave your message for
Daddy-o.
Hi, Daddy.
Okay, Dad podcast. Let's start this
You're
thing.
listening to my husband talk a lot.
There we go.
Yeah, I don't know why my headset wasn't working.
What's been up, man?
I can't call it, man. Living life, working,
Yeah,
doing the thing, man. Yep.
same thing. This is just straight up a hobby project.
Really?
Yeah, so been putting some stuff together, been throwing it up. My first interview that I did was a friend of mine from since middle school, Christian.
Okay.
So he had a lot of info. He's not a dad, but
Yeah.
as I recall, you just had a little one like a few years ago, right?
Yeah. Well, I was still in the Army. So she's 7 now. Well,
Yeah.
she'll be 7 in a couple weeks. Yeah.
Man.
Getting old, man.
So just one?
Just one right now. Yep.
All right. Well, since we're doing an interview, there's a ton of people out there that aren't going to know who you are. So if you just want to give us a little background, so your name, where you're at right now, a little bit of background story of it.
Yeah. So Dustin Edwards, originally from Mississippi. I live in Mississippi again. Olive Branch, Mississippi, to be exact. Was in the Army, 25 Charlie, right? So that's pretty cool. After the Army, I've been doing distribution. I started out as a lead, supervisor, assistant manager, manager now for a facility here in Memphis. So that's pretty cool. I actually, so the company I was with for 5 years, I left them, went to Williams-Sonoma because they offered me a better job.
Yeah.
But the like white whale job that I'd been trying to get for a year, it came along like while I was at Williams-Sonoma. So I was only there for a month, bounced out on those guys, and I start the new job on the 4th of January. So pretty cool.
No, while married, right?
That's a complicated discussion. So I was married in the Army, married when we moved down here. We separated and divorced in 2018. But then we just got remarried last month.
Okay.
Yeah.
To me, that's not uncommon. Surprisingly,
Really?
right? Yeah. So I have another buddy who also is wanting to jump on the podcast here, and something very, very similar like that happened with his situation. So he had a baby, they got married, they got divorced, then they're having another baby, then they got married again. So
Yeah.
like I know he's got a story there too. But so y'all are back together then?
Yes, sir.
Oh,
Remarried and everything.
Congrats.
So like thank you. One of my buddies, my old boss actually, when he first got hired on, like we were kind of talking, and like at this point, Brittany and I had just gotten back together, and I was telling him we got back together, and he was like, "Well, are you gonna get remarried?" And at this point, Brittany didn't know I already had a ring,
Yeah.
And I was like, "Yeah, I bought another ring. We're gonna get remarried." He was like, "That's crazy. Same thing happened with my wife and I." And I was like, "What the heck, man?"
Yeah,
So-
you feel like, oh man, like this is something that nobody's really dealing with, and
Yep.
then come to find like different people, especially people that you know. What I've noticed, especially like getting out of the Army, like being in the military, nobody really talks too much about stuff. It's everybody kind of hammers it down, like
Yeah.
you got to be tough, and there's like no BS with anything. But I mean, coming out, it really shows that there's a different type of person. Because I know,
Yeah.
when did you join the military? How old were you?
22.
22. So we're still like fairly young, right? Like
Yeah.
there's not a lot of like life experience that we have. And it's really like the older generation that's not like a baby boomer, but right under it, that wants to talk about their experiences. And I think when we finally like understand like, hey, I can learn something from this guy. Or,
Right.
He's been
Yeah.
around the block. There's stuff that we can see them do and then learn from that. But there's stuff that we really just have to experience ourselves, right?
Yep.
Rather than somebody else. That's good, man. It's not easy. Marriage is definitely not easy. It takes work.
Yep.
It's not something that's, if you're in the mindset of it's going to be perfect every single day, all the time,
Yep.
like you got the wrong kind of like Disney mindset in your head. So
Yep. Well, and so like what I did and the way that I treated marriage the first go around was it was more like I still wanted to do what I wanted to do. You know
Mm-hmm.
what I mean? Like I wasn't trying to include her or like build that sort of not just relationship, but friendship. You
Right.
know, it was like, I mean, I understand we're married, but like, I don't want to spend additional time with you. You know, like I
Right.
still want to
Yeah.
go do, and like if I work all day, like I don't want to just sit there and, spend so much time with you because I live with you,
Yeah. Like the rest of the
Um,
time.
yeah,
Yeah, and like I said, it's difficult because there's a lot of stuff that you're essentially combining two lives together in
yep,
one, and there's a lot of stuff too. Like you don't know somebody until you live with them, I
yep,
think. And then on top of that, I think the next like cliche thing is you don't know somebody until you live with them for 3 years, and
yeah,
then you really know.
yep,
I think that takes away from there too. So when you had your daughter, you were in the military, right? So you're in Washington.
yep.
Did you have any family up there?
No, my wife was,
Your
she's
wife
from
had a family
Washington.
up there?
Yeah,
How
so
how was that like raising your daughter initially without having like your family there with you?
it was strange. Specifically, I would say like my mom, because my sisters already had kids, so my mom had some grandkids, and it wasn't like I felt bad. I felt kind of like jealous a little bit of like my sister's kids because my kid wasn't being given the time to build that
Mm,
sort of immediate relationship with like
yeah.
my mom. And it was also strange because you just want to the little things like the first birthday, or you just want to like drop off one weekend and like let your kid play with your her grandparents or whatever.
Right.
So that was difficult. It was hard too, like coming home and visiting and like them trying to soak up all the baby loves, and then like yanking the kid away, like, okay, well, you'll see her in 6 months or whatever,
Yeah.
you know.
I know
Um,
like for us that's something we kind of try to toe the line on because my son spends a lot of the time with my mom, his
mhm,
grandmother, and not a lot of the time with his other grandmother on my wife's side or like on my father's side.
yep,
So, especially like early on when he can't even talk, taking him over or when they're seeing him and he's running away because he's not familiar with them.
yeah,
Like
yep,
that was tough on me. Like, ooh, man, like I'm not giving
yep,
you enough time to like build a relationship here. So I
yep,
know since you were separated from family being in the military, I know that's like a different situation to even
yep.
come up on.
And it was weird too when we moved back here, because like with Facebook, social media, whatever, all of these family members, cousins, my siblings, and so on, like they knew who my daughter was. Like they were fully versed in her life. They already knew about her
Hmm.
and everything. And you're introducing a 2-year old to these people, and she would just shut down, like you said,
You
like run
freak out.
away,
Yeah.
wouldn't want anything to do with them, and like they're trying to build a relationship, trying to be involved in her life, like just love on her, and she's like, whoa, back the heck up.
Yeah.
Luckily though, um well, I guess it depends on how you want to look at it. My wife's family is still in Washington, um and so they don't get to see my daughter as much as my family does, of course, but um it's not even missing a beat. Like when my daughter sees them, it's like she sees them all the time.
Yeah.
And that's been that way since we moved down here.
Okay.
So
And
that's
what age was she when y'all moved down here?
um 18 months, I guess, 19
Okay.
months. Yeah, she wasn't quite two, but they've had a number of visits down to come down here, my wife's family, and then um, June of 2019, my wife, when we were divorced and not back together,
Yeah.
she moved back to Washington. My daughter followed in August of 2019. Um, and so she lived up there for 6 months before moving back to Mississippi.
Yeah.
So she was able to kind of like build an even stronger relationship at 5 years old with them
Yeah.
again, only to be unfortunately taken away again. But
Back down Mississippi.
yeah, back down to
Yeah.
Mississippi. But that was kind of a catalyst for me, at least, of because Brittany and I, we lived together. It's weird, but we lived together for a year after we were divorced.
Yeah.
We still lived in the same house before she
That's
moved
not
back to
weird. It's y'all's
Washington.
things, man.
Yeah, I guess. It was, it was still weird though.
Yeah.
We were like
It's probably
roommates.
weird for other people, but like I mean, it's something I think we tend to compare ourselves a lot to like other things that are going on. Everybody else is like social media, and I kind of talked about that a little bit on the last one, but like even now, as we are here in like our 20s, like dads. Well, I just hit 30, dude. I'm old,
I'm 32, bro.
dude.
Yeah,
So maybe you're a baby boomer.
right. Close.
But like we compare ourselves to like other situations that are going on, or like the Facebook images, Dad of the Year award, and all these things that are going on, and like that's not the truth. Like the last episode I talked about my daughter, which is going to come up for you, my daughter getting her period. So like stuff like that, like you don't see other dads like posting up stuff about that. Like those are situations that come out that nobody talks about. The times like they have to like spank their kids or discipline and some like however you're handling the situation, like it's all different. So I wouldn't, at least for your sake, I wouldn't say it was weird. I just say, it's different. We're doing our thing though, but I wouldn't keep putting that on yourself that it's weird, man. Like everybody's got different situations. I think especially too, one thing that I want to be talking about as we do interviews is like the stigma of dads or like the male role figure. Everything that you're talking about, like one, it's difficult to even talk to your wife, girlfriend, spouse, or like anybody, your baby mama, about that going on, because we're seen as the male role model, the head figure. There's a big push in society about like just equal across the board, which there's places that I agree with it, there's places that we can't. Like I know some people don't even have the luxury of having a baby daddy in the picture, so that's kind of sad too. But the father figure still can't, in my eyes, be taken up by a female. And that's not to say that they need that baby daddy there or that father. If he's like a piece of trash, like then like by all means he shouldn't be there.
Peace out.
But yeah, exactly. But I definitely agree that like it needs to be a male role model, whether it be the grandfather, an uncle, the great grandfather, a brother, anybody I think can pick up that role and be there. It's just really incredibly difficult to do it if you're a mother, like a single mother alone, especially like if you're in a different state by yourself. Like let's say the single mamas that are in the military, that's probably a whole different world. And even then it's hard because there's that stigma like, hey, men are trash, we don't need them, just because one guy walked away, or we pushed the guy away. Like no matter what it is, like and I think it goes both ways too. So same thing, like I don't think if there's not a mom there, it's hard to kind of fulfill that motherly part, like a motherhood. Like but then again, you can still have a grandmother, a sister, an aunt, anything like that. But it's difficult to talk about these things because of society and Facebook, and you throw a hashtag up something and then all of a sudden everybody's like canceling you now. So these are things like that we're talking about that it's probably hard to talk to a spouse, a wife, a girlfriend about. One, we don't even think they're going to understand initially, so like why even bring it up? Two, we're keeping that stigma going to where like us guys, that's not something we're going to talk about, dude. Like let's put on the game, let's see like Alabama get whooped, like let's put something on, you know what I'm saying? But like, so I appreciate you sharing that with me. What do you going back to one of those things though, what do you think helped y'all the most kind of like reconnect?
So when she moved away, and I'll be honest, like up until we were literally loading the pod, like I was like, she's not gonna move. Like like this is all, like this is a dog and pony show.
Yeah.
And she's saying she's gonna move, but like we're gonna end up like reconciling immediately, you know. That did not happen. She did move.
Yeah.
And so the month of June, I spent, you know, just like angry. I don't want to say full of hate, but a little bit. You know what I mean? Um, but I was also focusing on spending time with my daughter because she was here with me for that, you know, entire summer.
Yeah.
And then I like my daughter and I went to a trip to Legoland, which is, if you haven't been, it's pretty legit.
Okay. Is that in Mississippi?
Florida. We went to Florida.
Oh, okay. Well, that
Yeah.
place is open right now, so
Is it open?
I think they're like fully open. So
Really?
yeah.
I mean, it's pretty awesome. I'm not gonna lie. And so like on the trip there, just kind of like realizing that this was gonna be one of the last big things I was able to do with her for a long time, you know. And we drove. So and my daughter slept most of the time. So I was alone with my thoughts for 13 hours there,
Yeah.
13 hours back, you know. And it was just kind of initially it was like I'm not going to stay in Mississippi. I'm going to move to Washington. And so that was like the initial conversation Brittany and I had was I was like, look, I want you to know that this move, if I do this, like it won't be for, you know, like keeping tabs on you or anything of that nature. It's going to be to be more involved in Eliza's life because I realized that I can't do this, you know, living 2,000 miles apart,
Right.
seeing her every other Christmas and in the summer. Because eventually, you know, 11 years old, she's not going to want to come to Mississippi for an entire summer.
Right.
You know, she's going to have friends. She's going to want to stay there, and same thing for Christmas. So that was like the initial thing that started was me realizing I didn't want to stay here without my daughter. And then it was a lot of just kind of sucking up the pride and being friendly to one another for both of us. You know, we started texting more often. I started out, you know, texting about my daughter and then just kind of, you know, wanting to know how each other's days were going. But the biggest thing, I bought tickets to fly to Washington for my daughter's first day of school. And I bought tickets for the wrong weekend, I guess, or like the wrong time frame. Something was messed up, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, crap, I just dropped, you know, $650 on these tickets now. And then like, I didn't get the insurance. So, Brittany had enough miles to where she just bought new tickets for me using her miles. And that was kind of like the turning point where we realized, you know, we both realized like we cared about one another. Like she
Right.
realized it by doing that. And then like, it was like the light bulb went off on me. Like I was like, oh, wow, she does actually care. You know, she's
Yeah.
not like heartless or whatever.
Yeah.
And so then it was, you know, we talked for like an hour, then a couple hours, and then it just slowly built up from there.
Yeah. That's good, man.
Yeah, it was pretty
That's
awesome.
good. Yeah. Like putting in that work, I think, and kind of like doing it at your own pace and like finding it out and coming
Yep.
back. There's like definitely what I learned with my marriage is like it definitely takes work to get where you want to be.
Yeah.
There's every day is not gonna be like a fairy tale. There's
Peaches
gonna be
and rainbows
things.
and everything.
Yeah, there's gonna be. We have expectations of our wives, and just like we do of them, they have expectations of us. And as long as we're able to see those and meet them, and then understand like we're not gonna meet those expectations every
Right.
single day,
Yeah.
but you know we need to have some grace when we're not.
Yep.
And I think even like when you start being direct and communicating through it, which is the biggest one, I think those are some of the keys, especially like I don't even think so. The older generation, I don't even think that was their case. I know in like the Hispanic culture here in San Antonio, us growing up, a lot of the family members that were together, like they were together, their marriages are long and lasting,
Yeah.
but they sleep in separate bedrooms, and that's normal to them. Or they sleep
that's
in
weird.
and they sleep in separate beds, which is
Yeah.
also normal to them too. And so growing up, that's kind of there's little things in like everybody's background, personal experience that you think is normal.
Yeah.
It's something that's like toxic, like shouting. So like my parents used to shout at each other and get angry at each other like a lot.
Right.
And I never thought about it. And now with my marriage, like my thing that she gets mad because she's like, anytime I get angry or like I'm raising my voice, she's like, you just shut down and leave. And I was like, you know what, you're right. Like that's probably because when my parents would shout, like I would just leave, like,
Bounce
hey,
out.
like,
Yep.
yeah, like I'm not about it when people are like yelling and shouting at each other. Like you guys are yelling, like, you know, I'll be over here. Give me a few hours when you're done being mad. Like, let's come back and we can talk about it. So I know that's like how I function, but that's not how my wife functions. So like knowing, hey, I have to change like my idea of that in order for her to start understanding, which I think stuff like that is just different. And he's back.
What happened? Was that me or you?
I think that was you. I didn't even press a button.
I just changed. Well, I just changed I changed it to my 5G router, so maybe that'll help.
Oh,
But
that's
like,
probably what it was.
yeah, you had like straight up frozen.
Don't
But
worry.
yeah, like you were talking about, you know, you would just leave and whatnot. So like my parents' relationships, like I have a stepdad, you know, I've had a couple of stepmoms, and both my dad and my stepdad are kind of like that. Well, my stepdad especially is like that passive aggressive type. You know,
Mm-hmm.
if like we didn't feed the dogs when we were kids, you know, like he wouldn't say you need to feed the dogs. He would take the dog food bowls and the dog food and put it like somewhere he knew we were gonna go. You know, like where the TV remotes would sit.
Yeah.
Like he'd put them right there. You know, and
Yeah.
my dad was a little bit of the passive aggressive type, but he was also pretty a little bit fly off the handle, you know, growing up. And so like I inherited both of those aspects. The fly off the handle I inherited with my daughter when she was like younger and everything, and then the passive aggressive type I inherited, you know, with my wife, and that was part of what I've had to, you know, grow and work on. When you know it can't be just like yelling at my kid, like that doesn't, especially when she gets older.
Yeah.
You know? And like I don't want her to like respect me out of fear, you know.
Right.
So I want it to be like she respects me because I'm that figure. I'm the adult figure. I'm the dad, not like crap. I know he's gonna scream at me if I don't do this sort of thing, you know.
Right.
But yeah, it's crazy. It really is crazy what we inherit just by either seeing or, you know, being around.
Yeah.
Having
And
to
you
live through
don't
it.
even realize that until years later. You
Yep.
catch yourself doing it. Sometimes we never realize it. I know my wife, when she gets angry at my daughter, so it's my stepdaughter. So when she gets
Mhm.
angry at my daughter's super sensitive. So she'll get there and start tearing up. And
Yep.
I like to brag on myself. I feel like I have a ton of patience because so I met my daughter when she was 6, and um, she didn't go to kindergarten. So she just went to the first grade.
Mm-hmm.
So she went to the first grade and she was falling behind a lot on the
Yeah.
subjects because just didn't have any kind of like education before that. And so my wife was working nights, about 2.5 hours away for like 16-hour shifts 3 times a week. So at night, I would get with my daughter. We would do her homework, and like she would come home. We'd be home at 4, and from 4 to like 6:30, we'd be working on it. We'd stop, we'd eat, we'd come back, and she's sensitive. So if she couldn't do it, she would start like just bawling, like, I can't do this. And so we would wait there. And by the time it was over, like, all right, we got finished with the homework. She's
Yep.
like, okay. So she feels a little bit better. She go take a shower, and I'm like, all right, well, it's bedtime. And she's like, what? It's already bedtime? And I was like, well, yeah, like, you know, we did our homework, we ate, and then we got a shower. Now it's bedtime. So then she'd go to sleep. And then the next day, it'd be the same thing, like clockwork all over again. So she'd be crying for a few hours. And we would let her go to her dad's on the weekend. And you could tell the difference when she was there versus when she was here, because if there was anything she didn't get her way, she would start crying.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I'm talking to her like she's much older, like, hey, you're crying because, you usually get your way, like right here, like I'm not your biological dad, but uh I do care about you. I love you, and like
Yeah.
I want you to read. So like let's get going. Let's start to read. And so every single day for 1 whole month, that's all it was. She would come home, she would cry through the whole work, and then she would just like look up at me and wait to see if I would like give in. And she was 6.
Right.
And I wasn't. So after the month, she's like, all right, we come home, we go over the homework, we get through it. She'd be frustrated, we get through it, but she wasn't crying. I'm like, all right, now you have time to go play. Like, all right, cool. So then she'd take her bike outside. And
Yep.
it's stuff that like if I came home from work one day, my wife would be going homework with her, and she's like, you can't get it. And it's like those memes where it's like me yelling at my kid, like 2 + 2 is what?
Yep.
And so I'd come in, my daughter would be crying. She's like, no, Cindy, that's not what it is. Like you're just playing with me now. She's like, no. And so I think that's one thing too, like learning your patience. My daughter did something like very similar to that with her chores. Like I would have to sit down and talk to her and
Yep.
like, hey, this is why you're doing chores. This is what we need you to do. But it's a whole different like ball game, especially like being a stepdad. I mean, personally, like I don't care. Like I love you. I'm gonna take care of you. This is how I want to raise you.
Yep.
I told my wife, like I've been waiting for an opportunity to, for her messing up in school, and then we're gonna go around the neighborhood and just pick up trash. And she's already in middle school now. She has not had anything really severe for me, like that does
You're
anything.
like, come on.
Yeah, like she has
Just
nothing.
punch a kid. Just do something.
I know, and I'm like, dude, you need to like. I guess it's good you're being a good kid, but like, there's no
Right.
way. Like, I have this in my belt here that I'm ready to use.
Right.
And since like none of that happened, I'm like, you know what? Like, it shouldn't even take that. That shouldn't even be a punishment. So I was like, hey, let's go around here and like let's clean up the ditch by our house. Let's clean up the pool area.
Yeah.
And so she was like, what? I don't want to clean up trash. Like, this isn't even our trash. And I was like, look, like we're part of the community. We're part of the community. Let's just go around, pick up some trash. Like, it'll
Yep.
take an hour at most. We pick it up. And then afterwards, she was like shining. I'm like, all right. Well, like, I was like, hey, look, show your mom the area you cleaned up. And she's like, look, mom, I cleaned up that area right there. And so I was like, all right, cool. But we were doing, her mom got mad at her for doing the dishes incorrectly a few months ago. And so she started crying that she wasn't getting it correct. And I started talking to her about it. And like I said, I'm her stepdad, helped her like learn to read.
Yeah.
And what like really hit me in the heart, and she doesn't even know it, is when I was talking to her about it, like, hey, I know it's kind of hard to, and she just sent me a request to approve an app, Taco Life World. And she had told me, I told her like, look, like I know it's hard talking to mom, but you got to talk to mom, like especially when you're flustered, like you can't just be getting frustrated all the time.
Yeah.
I was like, hey, if you can't talk to her, you can probably talk to me. And she's like crying and cleaning up her tears. And she's like, I told her, I was like, it's probably a little bit easier if you talk to me though, instead of, talking to your mom or talking to your dad. And she's like, yeah, it is easier talking to you than it is talking to my mom or my dad about stuff.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, my heart. I was like, you know what? We're going to go. Her favorite food's tacos. I'm like, we're going to go get some tacos right now. Like, I owe you one.
But see, and that's the beautiful thing about like the step parent relationships with children. Because I've had, like I said, like I've had multiple stepdads, multiple stepmoms. My current stepdad, he's probably, well, he's not probably, he's definitely the longest tenured stepdad that I've had, and growing up, like he came into my life, around 11 or 12. So like that really integral part of a young man's life, where you kind of like, you want that good father mentor type relationship. And like it was always awkward talking to my dad about certain things, but my stepdad way more, like he's the one that my dad thinks he taught me how to drive, but really my stepdad did, because my dad was like, what are you doing? Like,
Yeah.
break. My stepdad though, he would like sit back, chill, He'd be like, okay, just like, take this right up here, and then like let's take this left, and then let's
You're
roll
like
back.
stopping,
Yeah.
and he's just like, okay, like we're gonna go
Yep.
around the corner here. Yeah,
Super chill, and like that you need that in your life, whether it be from a step parent or like a biological parent. Like I always feel like one of the parents has to be, like you said, patient, but also like a little just like laid back,
yeah,
and I've always felt that like you find that more in step parents. It's hard for a biological parent to be the laid back chill one, like just because it's your kid, and you're always going to come from that area of like, you represent me when you go out there, like you need
yeah.
to do, but I don't necessarily want a stepchild because I'm married. I don't want to get divorced again.
Right.
But like I can respect the step parent relationship, and so I mean, like, that's awesome, dude.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, it's
that
good. She, I can tell she was like, how old was she? Asher's 3. She's 11. And so she's like 9 or 8 when my son was born. And the way like I've disciplined her and gotten onto her case for different things, you can tell like she's like, oh, you're not going to treat Asher like this. And
yeah,
my wife's like, no, you're probably going to be lighter on Asher than you are. And I was like, no, there's no way. I was like, Asher's a boy. If
yep,
anything, like I'm gonna spank. I spanked Cindy once, and the one time I spanked her is when she was 6 or 6.5. I think she might have been 7. She ran off into a crowd during a parade.
mm,
And so when I got her and found her, it was a, hey, spank, like get back to it. And she was
yep,
like so shocked about it. Like she didn't cry, but she knew she was in trouble.
yep,
And like so far, like that's the only thing I've ever had to, or the only time I've ever had to spank her. Like my son who's 3, like he got spanked today. So
right,
yeah, and when I say spank, it's more of like a little hit,
yeah,
because when they're that young, they just need to know that they did something wrong.
yeah,
And I love it, man, because he's 3. I give him the options like you can either 1 get spanked or 2 go to timeout. And so he'll start bawling and then slowly walk over, like I'm forcing him into
yeah,
timeout, so he doesn't get that spank. And so that's pretty fun. I'm like, man, I can dig that. And today,
yeah,
like, I'll even when he's crying, I'll put a timer on. So I'll put a timer on for 10, 15 minutes. And if it's above that, then typically for me, that's like my gauge. Like, oh, okay, something else is wrong. Like, let's go
yeah,
check. But usually after 5, 6 minutes, he settled down. He starts scooting out. Like, hey,
right.
am I gonna
Checking
come
checking to
out?
see if it's
Yeah.
cool. Yeah. Well, so like a couple months back, my daughter kind of broke my heart a little bit. I don't recall exactly what she had done. I think she talked back to her mom, and this went on for like a couple of back and forths, and I was like, hey, stop. And then like I found out what they were arguing about, and it basically just revolved around my daughter being sneaky, and
Mm,
like taking things she shouldn't have, right? And my daughter, she's in tears, so I bring her over, and I'm like, look, like, you shouldn't be doing this. We've told you about this, so do you think I should spank you for it? And she just said like, yeah. And I was like, you're just supposed to say no. Like, you're not supposed to like want the spanking.
yeah.
And she was like full, like I was sitting there in the chair, she was full on ready, like she just kind of like laid over my leg, and I couldn't spank her. Like it was kind of one of those things, like at this point I feel like I'm shooting an already crippled animal.
Yeah.
Like you're gonna, like, I'm spanking my child when she's full on, like, let's just get this over with.
Yeah.
And like I didn't want it to become the sort of thing like where she just accepts it. She's not
Mm-hmm.
learning from that moment.
Yeah.
So what I have done to her that just drives her nuts is, especially like when it comes to like cleaning, or if she's doing anything that's kind of like, you don't really want, like, she leaves a trail of crap in the living room,
Mm-hmm.
or she's got a TV in her room, but we take the remote away like after we set the sleep timer or whatever. But she'll come down and she'll get it. And
Ah.
so when I've caught her getting it, I'm like, okay, look, you have like I don't like what you do. I don't know. You have 2 or 3 options.
Yeah.
1, I'm going to take the TV out of your room. 2, you can go to timeout. Or 3, you can just do jumping jacks until I tell you to stop.
Yeah.
She generally chooses like the jumping jacks, or like she'll do push-ups or something like that, you know. And she's only 6, so she can't really do a push-up at all.
Yeah.
But she like it's the mentality of like being forced to do something like that
Mm-hmm.
that just drives her nuts. She was cleaning the living room one day, like all of her stuff was in the living room, and I told her, I was like, okay, look, you have 15 seconds to pick up all your things. If you're not done, you have to do jumping jacks for 15 seconds. She said, okay. This was like 5 to 6 minutes worth of picking up, you know what I mean? And so, like I said, you know, hey Google, 15-second timer. She sets the timer. She's like running around frantically trying to pick up everything. Timer goes off, so she does the jumping jacks, and then she starts picking up again, and then the timer goes off, so she does the jumping jacks, and then like it got to where she started picking up. She'd pick up like 2 items, so it'd be like 4 or 5 seconds, and she'd be like, "Oh crap!" So she's just like, you know, go ahead and start doing the jumping
Yeah.
jacks, and like that was funny, but it didn't get like really, you know, any point across.
Yeah.
And so like now what we're trying to work with is just like that, I guess, taking things away, you know, like you have these privileges, you're a very spoiled isn't the right word, blessed child, you know, like you have
Mm-hmm.
all these things, but like you need to realize like none of it's yours,
Right.
you know. So like you're allowed to watch TV because we let you, or you know, you're allowed to play on the video games and so on and so on because we let you. It's not like you have to do that.
Right.
And I think that's the best thing that's worked for us, at least, is just like you know, taking away certain privileges, and then she understands like crap. In order to do this, like I have to do this, you know.
Yeah.
And I just trying to get away from the spanking aspect. It'll probably be different if I have a son, but
Yeah.
because I have a daughter, you know, like
I think for me, like getting, especially like in middle school, like my daughter's too old to even like get spanked.
yeah,
She was, like I said, 6, 7 when that happened because she ran off into a crowd
mm-hmm.
in like a small town, nonetheless.
yeah,
Too. It was a Lotus Christmas parade here, so a small town where we live, Lotus. But man, I want to say maybe I don't even know how old you would be, but maybe the 4th or 5th grade would be too much. Now, I do feel like that's still for my daughter, because all of that's still fluid, like depending on like, you know, is it your son, your daughter, and then
yeah,
they're also their character. Like
yep,
are they a 4th grader with like a 6th grade mentality, or is it a 4th grader with a 2nd grade mentality?
yep.
But I think especially with kids where they like younger kids where they're not able to even talk or communicate, like that little tap on the butt with
Oh
the
yeah,
diaper fluffing it up, like they understand like, hey, that didn't even feel good. Like it may not like now
yep,
it's to the point to where you don't even have to like spank them. You can say, hey, you're going to get spanked, and then just like
yep,
do that. And then the look on their face is like, I just got spanked. That's
yep,
bad. And then they'll cry themselves. I think when it's like that, like you're good to go because there's no real harm there, but you're getting them to think like, oh, okay, like spank is something negative, like
yep.
that my action that I just did versus it's really hard to discipline when it's like he's 3 right now. We get the letter at the end of the day for the daycare. Oh, like he ended up scratching somebody because they took a toy and he didn't want to share. It's like, how do you discipline a 3-year-old for something he did 8 hours ago?
Yep.
And so those are definitely harder. I don't know. It's I wouldn't say impossible, but it's a lot of I think that's where patient comes in. It's a lot of going, hey, remember 6 hours ago?
Right.
Sure. Remember 6 hours ago? Remember 6 hours ago? And then he finally like, oh yeah, that's bad.
Yep.
And he's like, what are we talking about?
Yep.
But
I used to hate those letters too, man. Like, from the daycare, like, she marked red today, you know, or what, like, because I think they used to have like green, yellow, red.
mhm.
Like green, like they were good. Yellow, they were like, okay. Red, they did something really bad, you know. And so I would get a text or a call from Brittany, because she'd pick her up from daycare and she'd be like, yeah, so Eliza pulled red today because she pushed a kid over. And like for me, it's without knowing everything that occurred, because
Yeah.
like she could have bumped the kid and then the kid fell over. Like I don't find it in my kid's personality. She's gonna straight up, just like
Yeah.
push a kid over. But like I get what you're saying. Like it is difficult to
Yeah.
at any age really to like when they're not fully understanding, I guess.
Hmm.
So maybe like 6 7 and below, to try and like go back a day or 2 days, like my
Yeah. To
mom.
see.
Yeah, my mom will tell me when my daughter's there for the weekend, like, yeah, so Eliza did this on Saturday, and I'm picking her up on Sunday, and I'm like, well, how did you handle it? Like, well, like I talked to her about it, but you need to talk to her too. I'm like, she doesn't do that at my house though,
Yeah.
like she does it at your house. Like if you're gonna give her like all the freedom that she wants, like she's still gonna do certain things that you're not gonna
Yeah.
like, you
Yeah.
know. But
Man.
yeah, kids are a mess, man. I
He,
forgot that you had a 3-year-old. Like I don't know why I thought he was older than 3.
now he just turned 3 this October, and then we got one on the way. So we
Oh,
got yeah.
congratulations!
Thanks, man. We got another baby boy coming this March.
That's awesome,
So
man.
we'll see. My wife asked me like, "How many do you want?" Now I just came from a small family, so it was just me and my sister. And my
Mm-hmm.
sister, I think, is 6 years older than me. 7. No,
Somewhere up
she's
there.
a few years older than me. Maybe I think 4. I think she's 4 years older than me.
Yeah.
I'm giving out her age, right? She's gonna be all. Yes, so she's 4 years older than me because when I went to high school,
You
when
did
I
say you were 30, so now
yeah, I know. So
everybody that watches this knows she's
everyone's like
34.
adding
Yeah.
it up now, right? Like, oh, okay, I know how old she is.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude, like she was older, so we probably didn't even start acting like a brother and sister until I was in high school and she
Mm-hmm.
was out of high school. That age discrepancy, it was a lot like have you ever seen the show like Even Stevens,
Yep.
where they're just like always going at it? We were always going at it, man. Like
Yep.
she'd be slamming her door on me because I'd take one of her Barbie dolls. So to get back at me, she would hide some of my toys, or
Yep.
it was. I'm pretty sure we gave our family hell for all that, but I want the age discrepancy between Asher and his sister is 7 8 years,
Yep.
and I wanted him to have a brother or sister, so at least when Cindy's not here on the weekend, he can have somebody else with him. And my wife's like, no, like I kind of like it because she's old enough to like babysit him if we need to now, for at least for like an hour or two. As she like hits 12, 13, like she'll be able to do it for a few more hours.
Yep.
But we can at least go into the other room and she's babysitting him, or we can go outside and start barbecuing with both of them inside and not worrying about everything
Yeah.
being burnt down.
Right.
And I was like, I mean, I like it. And I was like, but still, like going through school, like especially now with COVID, like it's hard for
Yeah.
people finding friends. Even my daughter, for her, we moved so she can go to a better school. She went to the better school for, I think, a total of 2 months. And then COVID
Jeez.
hit. And then she's been going online since. And then she just got back to normal school. So this
That's
past one.
crazy,
So
man.
yeah, I know I think socially it's hurting kids right now.
Yep.
But I want him to have somebody at least to grow up with. And so I wanted to have another baby right after Asher, and but it's not up to me. Like
Right.
I'm not the one making the baby.
Right.
Like I just give you the ingredients. And
Yep.
so she,
Well, and even then, like it's not up to either one of you if it happens,
yeah,
right away. Because I mean, it can be like a month, it could be a year,
yeah,
So it's just like one of those fickle situations.
we tried for Asher. We're like, you know what? Yeah, I think we're gonna have a baby. And then after 2 months, we're like, we're probably not gonna have a baby. And then like 2 weeks later, we're like, oh yeah, we're pregnant. I was like, oh,
Yeah.
or she's pregnant. And I was like, damn, okay. And with this one, I told her, because she's like, how many do you want? And I was like, how many kids do I want? She's like, how many do you want? And I was like, I don't know, for 5. Like I'm just throwing a number
Yeah.
out. And she's like, you want 5 kids? And I was like, I mean, I think we can handle 5 kids.
Right.
It'd be a lot. But I was like, if we have 4, we can at least run 5s on the basketball court. I told him.
There you go. There you go. That's awesome.
Man.
Yeah, we're like I mean, I don't want to say trying. We're not doing anything to prevent, having a kid. And so we've always kind of been of the mindset like we're just gonna stop at 2. And then I would say a couple of weeks ago, like Brittany dropped a bombshell on me that like she'd be okay with 3, like she'd kind of prefer 3. And I was like, where the heck is that coming from?
Yeah.
But like it'll be completely dependent on what the second child is. If it's a girl, I'm stopping it too. I don't like for no other reason other than it would just be hard for me to be the father of 3 daughters.
Dude,
you know,
heart attacks, man.
Yeah, I know that's what I'm saying. Because you just you don't know, you don't have the say in that,
Yeah.
And so if the second one's a girl, as much as I'd like a son, to kind of like carry on the the name and all that whatnot, every guy wants a son, I know it will be difficult for me to raise 3 girls. And she understands that, like she's willing to, like if it's the second one's a girl, but if the second one's a boy, I mean, yeah, I think I'd be okay with it, trying for a 3rd. But we're at the point now, because we were separated, divorced and everything, right before we separated, we were discussing having another kid, and our daughter was 4. So that would have only put them, if it happened quickly, like 5 years apart.
Yeah.
Now she's about to be 7. We're not pregnant. And so if we do get pregnant, by the time the baby's born, she'll be about 8. So there'll be that large age gap.
Yeah.
So, we might, like we might have to think about it like Eliza and the second kid aren't really going to be close at all.
Yeah.
By the time that the other kid gets interesting, Eliza will be driving and, a senior almost.
Is Eliza like really good with like younger kids or?
It depends. She doesn't like babies. So like little babies. My brother, they live in North Dakota, and he just came down to visit with his daughter, who is 3 months old. I guess she was born in September.
Yeah.
And Eliza was like, could care less.
Yeah, like it's not doing anything. It's not even moving.
Like, and then like Evelyn would cry, and my daughter would be like, "Shut that thing up," I tried to get her to hold her. She was like, "Nah, I'm good. Like, not interested in that," But I have another niece who's a year. Her birthday is actually, I think, today. And my daughter loves her because she can crawl. Like she's kind of like she acknowledges my daughter. She laughs when my daughter does something stupid or funny or whatever, So I guess it's all about the age.
Yeah, my daughter tends to gravitate towards like the young kids that like not really about babies because like they're not moving, they're not doing anything.
Yep.
But any kind of like younger kid that can at least walk, like what is it? Those little like red flying wheels. The tricycles, what are they called? Red flyers, the flyers.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah,
like
those little
type things.
Those super small ones.
Yeah.
So like where we used to live, the neighbor had a couple of kids, and they were same grade level as everything as Cindy, but they also had a little baby who was able to get on, like had a little bike like that, and so. I'm like, man, Cindy, like you're in the 4th grade and you're like playing around with like all the smaller kids in the neighborhood would come around, and she'd just be like bossing them around, like playing with them, and they're doing everything. Right. So she's been like really good with like smaller kids. And in my mind, I'm like, that's probably just like her character. But my fear is like Asher, the age difference of Asher is like he's not going to be able to even like play with the new baby. And I've had that fear for a while, and we just went to our friend's house for this past Christmas Eve, and with COVID compliance and
right.
we just went past there to their house. Safe
space.
Yeah, we went there, and they have two girls, and
Okay.
they're older. They can like talk. Like Asher's
Yeah.
finding his voice and stuff. And so I'm always worried, like, oh man, well, like Cindy's not here, so I don't know, like, if they're even gonna want to play with Asher. And they're running around the whole house, like playing the whole time we're there. We're there for a few hours. The whole time we're there, they're playing, they're having fun, and I'm like, I really don't think. I think it's just a fear of mine. Like, oh man,
Yep.
they're not gonna want to play together. But like, if Asher's playing with kids and he knows them too, and at the end, they're like, Asher, what's my name? And so he's Katie, and they're like, no, that's my mom's name. What's my name? And then so he starts saying it. So like, I'm curious to see the next time they get together if he even remembers like their
Yeah.
name. But like every time we go, like he plays with all the kids, and there's kids that are younger than him. So like the fear that I had just kind of melted away. I'm like, all right, like I really don't have to worry about that. Like he
Right.
still plays with my daughter who's gonna be 12 in February. So like
Yep.
I really don't think like the age discrepancy is going to be that big. I think it becomes big whenever a kid gets to like you said, the teenage years when they start
Yeah.
driving, like they're going to want to be on their own. And I just think it depends on the character too. Like the relationship you build with your kids will
Yep.
kind of dictate how that'll be. I
Yep.
saw the way my sister going through her like rebellious phase treated my parents, and then whenever she wasn't home, I saw like my parents react to it. So like for myself, I'm like, oh man, like I don't want to be the cause of this.
Right.
So I tried to like not do stuff that my sister did that she didn't even know was affecting my mom and dad or like their emotions. But
Yep. Like, so for me, I was the oldest of, well, on my mom's side, I have two sisters. I'm older than both of them. And then on my dad's side, I have two brothers and a sister, and I'm older than all three of them. So it was like, I guess you could say I was the guinea pig, like I
yeah,
had to test the waters with my parents.
yeah,
And they were kind of learning how to parent a teenager and young adult through me, and then my other siblings came along. But relationship wise, I had none with my youngest brother and my youngest sister, because it's 10 plus for both of
years,
them.
right?
Yeah. And kind of despised them a little bit, like growing up, just because, especially the youngest brother, uh, getting into my stuff,
Mm-hmm.
video games, so on and so forth. Playing those when I'm not home and everything. Like, as
Yeah,
you're a older teenager, young adult, you're working jobs, you're paying for the stuff, still living at home, and
mm-hmm.
then like your siblings who get home from school at 3 o'clock. They're playing
Scared
your
up.
PlayStation 3 that you never get to play because you're working,
Yeah.
and it drives you insane. So it was like, that's part of the reason why I don't want such a large age gap, is because until they got to be that 17, 18, 19-year-old range, like I didn't have any relationship with them.
Yeah.
It was just kind of viewed as like, I acknowledge your existence, I'll buy you Christmas and birthday presents, but like other than that, I don't have anything for you.
Yeah, you can't really share like
Yeah.
days.
Right. Whereas
Yeah.
like my other siblings, who were all closer in age, still a little bit apart, but like closer,
Mm-hmm.
I always, have always had a relationship with them. So it's just a weird dynamic of, like, you feel like you missed out on a large part of my younger siblings' lives,
Yeah.
because I wasn't really, involved in trying to be there for them. And so I don't have as many stories to tell when we all, we gather around and we're
Gather
telling
around.
stories. I don't have as many with them because I didn't try.
Yeah.
So it's just like hoping that I can avoid that, and like avoid Eliza having to go through that. At the same time, though, Eliza likes to boss kids around like your daughter,
Yeah.
and she wants to be older than she actually is.
Mm-hmm.
So she, when she's with her cousins, who are like, there's a group of them that are all the exact same age, maybe a year or 6 months apart. Eliza tries to be kind of like the boss of that group, and it's like, like flipping the hair, like whatever,
Yeah.
like, come on, girls, like y'all need to stop acting crazy, like, whatever, like telling them to stop acting like kids, and she's freaking 6 years old,
Yeah.
So, but I mean, it'll happen if it happens, I guess.
No, man. I'll keep praying for you.
I appreciate it,
I
man.
hope y'all get it.
Yeah.
Hopefully it's a boy.
Fingers
If
crossed.
not,
Right.
you'll still be blessed. But
Yep. Yep.
yeah, I told my wife, I was like, it's gonna be a boy, and she's like, no, it's not. Like we're going for a girl, and I was like, I'm okay if we have a girl. And then I was like of the mindset, you know what? I would like Asher to be my only son. I was like, I think that'd be pretty cool to just have
Yeah.
an only son. That sounds cool. And when we knew we were pregnant, we were just like, hey, let's just focus our energy. Like, it's a girl. It's a
Right.
girl. So we're like, yeah, it's going to be a girl. And we went. Unfortunately, my wife, somebody T-boned her and
Mm.
totaled the car. She had Asher with her. All the airbags deployed. So they were both fine, but she was pregnant.
Yeah.
We don't even know how many weeks pregnant she was. So we're like, we haven't set up the doctor meeting yet. This accident just happened. So the next morning we go to the ER. So, hey, we're pregnant. And they're like, oh, okay, like who's the doctor? And we're like, we don't got one yet. And like, she's like, okay, well, how many weeks are you? We're like, don't know how many weeks we are. Just, how do you know you're pregnant?
Yeah.
We're like, we know we're pregnant. And she's like, okay. And so they order a full sonogram there since it was for a car accident. And they're like, do y'all want to know the gender? And we're like, yeah, we want to know the gender. And she's like, well, I can't tell you the gender. And I was like, what? She's like, because she's an ER sonogram person. So she's like, it's not like, she's like, I know what it is, but I can't say it like legally, like, because if it's wrong or whatever. We're like, oh my gosh.
Why'd she ask you then?
I know. We're like, get out of here.
Oh.
And so we and she's doing the sonogram like, if I can tell what that sonogram is. She's like, yeah, you see that? She's like, do y'all want to know the gender? And I'm like, I don't know what I'm looking at. Like, it looks like
Right.
an old pixelated TV. And so we go into we get a doctor ordered, we work all that out. And so we go in, and of course it's COVID, so they're like, oh, like no fathers can come in right now. So I'm like, oh, okay. With Asher, I went to every single appointment.
Yeah.
And I'm just waiting outside on this one. They're doing the sonogram. They give us an envelope. We come back home. We open it, and it's a boy. And I was like, dang. I was like, all right, it's a boy. I was like, I feel good. I was like, I feel bad because we were wanting a girl. Like we were wanting, and so I'm like, and even Asher, my wife was wanting a baby girl, just because like even when you go shopping for like clothes and stuff, like it's like, oh, look at this thing. Like girls have options, right? Guys have t-shirts, shorts.
Yep.
So like even now when we're going for my son on the way, we got his name. It's gonna be Oliver. So when
I like that.
I like it too. We have Asher for Asher Scott. We want to sound kind of like superhero-y, like, double names. So Oliver, we're thinking of couple of different like middle names. Have you know who Charlie Day is, right?
Yeah.
So we're thinking of like Oliver Day because it kind of just rolls off the tongue too.
Yeah,
so
it does.
I'm like, So that might be his middle name, but that one's pending for now.
Right.
But we're going and we're looking for baby clothes, and like every time, like she's like, oh, look at this one. It's like a little like skirt or dress or something, and I'm like, like. So I want to be able to just like, hey, let's have a daughter so you can have another daughter.
Yeah.
But I was like, yeah, I'm perfectly okay having like one son, and then I'm getting another one. So I'm like, oh, okay. I was like, you know what though? I have the studio set up, and then we have a guest bedroom, and I'm like, no, Asher can share his room with Oliver.
Yep. There you go.
They're gonna have bunk beds. Like, there's no way. Like, Oliver's not taking a whole room to himself. Asher barely uses his room. I was like, no.
Yep.
Oh,
well,
man.
and so like for me, man, like with my daughter, she's very jealous too, and so like that's kind of like the fingers crossed thing for a boy is, like you said, so that like I know if it's a boy, the love will be spread, equally, like in my daughter's eyes, like if it's a girl though, it'll be really difficult for her, like watching her mom dress up the baby in like little cute little
Yeah.
frou clothes, like you said, and like spending that additional time, like just like kind of dolling over this actual doll,
Yeah.
like living doll, while my daughter's like who's gonna brush my hair or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we'll see, man. But
Yeah, my wife is she's always telling my daughter that Asher's her favorite because Asher will come over and just like give her hugs. She's like, oh, like Cindy never just comes over and gives me hugs. She's like,
yeah,
excuse me, you can't pick favorites. And she's like, well, Asher's over here loving on me. And then I'm like, really, Asher's your favorite? I was like, nah, Cindy's my favorite. And she's like, y'all can't be picking favorites. And I was like, Cindy takes out the trash, she cleans the
yep.
dishes. I was like, I can't even get Asher to pick up toys sometimes.
Right.
So I was like, nah, you can have Asher all day. I'll take Cindy. She does
Right.
the chores she needs to do. But do you have any final thoughts, man, or you have anything you wanna kind of point out or pick on as far as anything?
No, man, not really. I think we covered a good bit. Like you said at the beginning, it's difficult to be a dad, like especially today. I feel like dads are kind of viewed as necessary only for what they can provide. Like if they're not being essential to the family, then they're not essential at all. But it's not just about like putting the roof over the head and buying the necessary things, because I mean in most relationships the father's going to be the primary breadwinner, and that's all that we're viewed as, I feel. But I like dads can teach a lot to kids, whether it be daughters or sons, even in the legal system. Like when we were going through the divorce, my lawyer told me straight up, she's like, look, I can't legally tell you this because you can go about it however you want to. She said, but I'm just gonna like warn you, if you try to fight for custody, like you're not gonna win. Your wife doesn't have anything wrong with her, and she's not a bad mom. So like she's like, they're not gonna side with you, and like that's just that that's kind of crappy. Like even dads that are the better parent, like maybe the mom does have significant drug issues or whatever it may be. It's still an uphill battle for dads, so for any single dads, it's just a matter of hanging in there, like knowing that the system might not be in your favor, but that you are necessary, and that you still need to be a part of that child's life and work at it however you can.
Yeah.
So
Totally. Well said, man.
Thank you.
Well, you know where I'm at. You got my contact information. I'll even I'll shoot you my number if you ever need anything from me too. And
all right, man.
As always, if you wanted to be back, you're welcome back, man. So we'll get together.
Sounds good. Again. It was good talking to you, man.
Nice talking to you, man. Nice catching up.
All right. Yep.
All right,
Later.
brother. I appreciate it.
Yeah, man.